a Whirlwind MPU board. This is an 11B. It is missing the connection at J15 and also all the audio amplification circuitry. It does retain the 1408 digital to analog converter and the 55536 CVSD. This board was sent because the battery holder was corroded and the client would like to have NVRAM installed. And so that's no problem. This has got a 6116 in it. I'm going to move jumper W5 to W6, take out the 6116 and socket and install a 6264 NVRAM. 6264 is cheaper, it's more available. I just think it's a better general solution. I'm going to replace this 22 microfarad cap, these three 100 microfarad power filter caps, and there's two blue 10 microfarad caps over here that I always replace also. Now, the client didn't mention any corrosion, or at least he thought it hadn't gotten off of the battery holder, but you can see that those two SRCs, the lower two, are corroded, and the upper one might be also. I'll take these two lower ones off and we'll see about that. Worse, the corrosion, this is maybe difficult to see, but it has gotten onto the legs of U41 and U51, so I'm going to take those out also and install sockets. I'm probably going to replace those because once the corrosion has gotten to the edge of the chip carrier, there's no guarantee that it hasn't infiltrated under the chip and you're just looking for trouble. Now, once I abate this corrosion correctly, this board will be good to go for a long time. You can see this trace, let me get my finger out here, yeah, has got some dark spots right there and here. So I'm going to sand those traces down and make sure there's no corrosion that's invaded under the solder mask also. All right, I'll see you in about an hour. Well, it's about an hour later, and upon further review of these SRCs at the top of the board, there are 4 of them. Actually, there are more. There were 5 that were corroded, and I have removed all of them, and I've replaced it with a resistor pack. It's a SIP resistor pack. This is the part number. It's a 1-472, which means it's a 4.7K pull-up resistor, and it is bust, meaning pin 1 goes to 5 volts, and the other 8 pins on that pack are tied to the signal lines, and they pull the signal up to 5 volts. And of course, everything on a pinball machine and a computer in general works by syncing things to ground, and that's what the 6821s do when they want to turn on a segment, for instance, on the display. So I've removed those. The original part has an integrated 0.01, I think, microfarad capacitor, and the reason that Williams did that and every other manufacturer was to tamp down signal noise between the 6821s and the soundboard and the display panel, but that part is no longer available. It's long been obsolete, so it is okay to just use the resistor part and ignore the capacitor part. I have replaced the 3 caps in the filter section. Those are non-polarized caps, being that they're green. Those are fine to use in that section. They're generally used for audio applications, but perfect to use here too. 22 microfarad cap replaced, and there's 2 10 microfarad caps on the left side that have been replaced. Next step is to wash this board down, make sure I've got all the powder, I guess, that results from sanding off this solder mask out of the holes. It tends to set up like concrete if you don't get that out of there. And then once I lay it out in the nice hot St. Louis sun today to dry completely, I will conformal coat this bare copper with a 3M product, repopulate the board, and then test. So this is going to be about 6 hours from now. See you then. And we are in the final stages of this Whirlwind alkaline corroded MPU board and the installation of NV RAM. I changed that from the original one, so I'll put my gold stripe on there. But it is booting on the bench, and I have gone through the tests. I'll show you in just a second. But one thing I did have to change was there is some fault in this reset section. All of these components are the reset section. So I scraped off the parts necessary, the lower resistor, these two here, add a jumper there, and use a a Data East style reset generator, and she is working perfectly now. The way I figured that out was with the regular ROMs, it wouldn't boot at all, but I put Leon's ROM in, and I know how Leon's ROM is supposed to operate since I've done it 1,000 times. And I could see that it was receiving an extraneous reset signal, so that pointed me in the direction of the ultimate repair. Let me boot it for you. That is normal. It says there's a pinball missing. Of course it would. We're not in a pinball machine. Let's get into test. So all those sounds are coming from the soundboard, I'm pretty sure. Display test. And this would have been of some concern since there was some corrosion there, but you can see that all the segments and all of the digits or alphanumerics are lighting up as they should. Since I've abated that corrosion, we should never have another problem. At least in that area.
Looks like rain.
Well, those sounds are all coming from the MPU side. And those were working correctly. The lamps. And we can do single lamps. You see some ghosting. That is because this test device is an LED display, and that is totally normal. The next test is coil test. Barely got that in there. Whirlwind, like many of the later System 11 games, multiplex side A and side C. So the orange LED that's lighting is the simulated AC select relay. It's on this very nice Victor test rig or test device that I've got. Those are the special solenoids that are firing right now, and those are all working correctly. I can fire them via the switches. Correct. These two orange ones are the flipper power enable relays, so those are working correctly. Let's go to switch edges, and I believe Whirlwind tests all 64 switches, so I'm going across the row and column diagonal, and sure enough, it will at least report it. This is the A side, C side select test, which Victor's test device also supports, which is kind of cool. This is turning on solenoid 12 on Whirlwind, and this tiny relay is acting as the AC select relay, which is on the aux powered driver board in the real game. So I've already set this thing to free play via adjustment 23. I'm going to power through the audits and adjustments, let it reboot. Still got a pinball missing, normal, and she is good to go. So I thank you so much. This board is in great shape. It's at least as good as it was when it was brand new. Thanks again. One more note about this alkaline cleanup that I'd meant to mention. There are some techs in the pinball repair business who would have just put a wire brush on the top legs that were corroded and here that was corroded, sprinkled some vinegar or toilet bowl cleaner or whatever they use in vogue these days on the corrosion that was on these parts. Again, wired brushed them, and if the board worked, they'd call it good. But they'd have left all this latent alkaline corrosion that is invariably would have damaged some of the traces on this board. And I like to abate the corrosion 100%. Every molecule of corrosion here has been abated, and it will never come back on this board.